Welcome to Spotlight on the Arts. I'm your host tonight, Bill Hirschman. I'm the editor and founder of FloridaTheaterOnStage.com, and I'm joined by our usual panel of some of the cream of South Florida theater. We'll start off with the multi-talented hyphenate, Michael McKeever. And next to him is the founder of this wonderful program and the grande dame of South Florida theater, the wonderful Iris Acker. And filling out the panel is more talent than we can possibly stand with the wonderful Karen Stevens. I'm getting paid for that. Anyway, we are genuinely honored tonight to have as our guest Teddy Harrell. Teddy has been one of the primary forces in African American theater in South Florida for many, many years. He's currently, and I got to get the title right, the Assistant Center Director for the African Heritage Cultural Arts Center in Miami. And I want him to explain how this particular job came together, because you're better known as the founder of the African American, I get this wrong, Cultural Arts Community Theater. I've only gone to this 100 times.
And you could blame me for coming up with that long name.
I was going to say,
I said it was APAC for short, you know?
Yeah, if you and I said APAC, it would have been quicker.
Right.
Explain this entire alphabet soup.
Well, Marshall Davis, who is the founder, the director of the African Heritage Cultural Arts Center, he's been the director there for 35 years, and we just celebrated 40 years at the African Heritage Cultural Arts Center last year. Yeah. It's a wonderful, thank you all so much. It's a wonderful feat for us. He called me up. I was working another job with Miami-Dade County, and he called me up and he said, listen, we have a theater director position open. And I said, what? He said, theater director position open. So I said, wow, that's great. He said, so why don't you go down and apply for this position? And so I did. I didn't think I was going to really get the job, as most jobs when I go and audition or apply for jobs. I didn't think I was going to get it. So I got the job, and then it was one of the hardest jobs I've ever done in my life. Because I'm sitting around theater folks, you know, of course, and you all know that when you work in the theater, it's not just that you're going to direct a show or act in a show. You also do a whole lot of other things. You build sets, you sweep the floors, you do everything. It's crazy. And but I love it. I love it. I love being in the theater. Just love it. And it was just one of the best choices that I could have made.
And that was how long ago?
This was last year. Right.
Okay.
This was last year.
And you were an actor up until then?
And I was actually a director up until then. And you know, when you become a director and a producing artistic director, you don't get a chance to really act as much as you used to, you know. Right. So because of running the theater with African American Performing Arts Community Theater, APAC, I really just stepped away from acting, and I miss acting so much.
I was going to say, do you miss it? Do you find that you miss it?
Oh my goodness, I miss it so much. I miss it so much.
Well, hopefully it doesn't mean you're not going to be going back to it. Eventually you will hopefully find some time.
I've been trying to, you know, I've been just doing a lot of voiceovers, you know, and been doing that, you know. I've been trying to get out on the commercial trail as much as I could. But it's very hard to get into a show with another company. I've turned down some things, you know. But, you know, it's just really, really hard, you know. So, but I love doing what I'm doing. I love developing what we have at the African Heritage Cultural Arts Center and really developing that into a force in our community. We always call ourselves a jewel of the community. Because what ends up happening is that people just ride by our building and they don't know what it is. And then when people come down, they say, you've been here for 40 years and you're doing this type of work, you know? And not only that, we do a whole lot of other things because we work really hard with the kids in our community. We want to develop our children into being wonderful artists in the community. So what we do is we train them in not just theater, but in also vocal music, instrumental music, dance, visual arts. And we turned out some incredible people. Robert Battle from the Alvin Ailey Company, who is now the artistic director of the Alvin Ailey Company. He studied dance at our particular center. Wow. Terrell McCraney, a wonderful playwright, he actually studied also at our center. And another wonderful woman by the name of Bianca Bruton, who now dances with Beyonce. She also studied there. And there's numerous other folks that have come through that center. So we're keeping it going. We're doing the best we can.
We always ask everybody, actually, what is your mission?
Our mission is to provide those quality services to those children in our community that I just mentioned in those particular disciplines. Our mission is also to make sure that we are opening our doors for resident artists to come in all of the forms of all of the arts, and make sure that our particular place is a hub for them to come in to develop what they do, to develop their companies, like APAC did. APAC came into that particular company, and that was just an incredible black box for us to utilize that. I love intimate spaces when you're doing theater. It's just like what Joe Adler has over there at Gable Stage. It's like being right there.
Sure.
Like, you know, you're right
There's
there.
nothing better when you're right there, that close to the actors.
Goodness, it's incredible, you know, and you have people just looking at you saying, "Why God, are they going to shoot that gun?" You know, so
No, it's a nice little space.
Now that you've taken on another title, another position, are you still the director of APAC, or has someone else stepped into that role?
I am still the director of APAC,
Okay.
but what I was telling Bill earlier is that we're merging ourselves more and more into
the
that
cultural center.
particular theater.
Okay.
Just to let you all know that you know, I'm one of the founders. There's some incredible people that helped to start APAC. Andre Elgany, who you know very well. I know you've been on stage with him. John Pryor, who's a wonderful director. Chad Atkins. Those people actually, at the beginning of APAC, we all sat around the table and we said, you know what? African American actors are not working as much as we would like for them to work in South Florida, and we would love to be another source for some work. And so that's why we started APAC.
And it's great because the gentleman you just listed, as well as yourself, these are all great actors. These are all really A-list, top quality actors.
Absolutely. And that's the one thing that we want to make sure we always get into the head of African American actors, is that, you know, there's a discipline to this. This is not just, you know, you just walk on stage, you know. It's just not that. It's so much more to it. It's so much more of the studying that you do. When I was at University of Miami, I studied under Robert Lowry, who they call Buckets, his wife at the time, Barbara Lowry, and John Pryor, of course. You know, so, and just that type of work, studying with those people and understanding what you need to do on the stage as an actor, not just as an African American actor, but just as an actor, period. You know, you have to have that up under your belt.
But that brings up an interesting question. In the last year or two or three, there have been numerous Miami and Broward and Palm Beach based African American actors and Latino actors who have left. And they're usually in their late 20s to mid 30s, but there's a lot of them that are left. Ethan Henry and Makiba Pace, Renata Eastlick, the list goes on and on. Is there enough work? And if there isn't, how do we get enough work to keep those actors here in this region?
Well, I can tell you, thank God Karen Stevens is still here.
Amen to that.
Thank God, thank God, thank God, thank God. Man,
Hire Karen.
I mean, you know,
And isn't that really all that matters?
did you see her speech at the Carbonells? I got that on my phone. I look at it all the time. No, but let me say, is there enough work for anybody, you know, in South Florida? I mean, you know, but for African American actors, and you know, hate to see Ethan go, Makiba go. Renata is doing incredible work in New York right now. Mashawn Arnold is in Washington right now. We tried to get him to come down with his Stokely show. Just doing incredible work. These are just phenomenal actors, and you have to spread your wings. There is not enough work in South Florida for African American actors.
But you have a season, don't you, of plays that you do
Yeah.
with a repertory company or show by show.
You know, when I started APAC, I didn't really believe in a troupe type company. And the reason why is because there were so many actors that we didn't know about. And that was the thing that we always got from other companies. So let's just say, when Actors Playhouse, when they said, you know, we need an African American actor, then they'll start calling people, you know, but only when we need that. Now, I'm not putting them down at all for that at all, but I'm just saying that those opportunities a lot of time had become far in between. Now, in the last 10 years, companies have really been using a lot of African American actors in their shows, and to really make a concerted effort to use that, to use
In
those.
colorblind casting, would you say? Or-
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Isn't that what-
Absolutely.
That's so good
Absolutely.
to hear.
And I mean, how else are you going to work? When you go to Disney, you see the Disney kids, and you know good and well in some of those Disney shows, you don't see a brother in there with braids in his hair. You know, so when you see that, you know that Disney's making a great effort to do that.
Right.
And I'm so glad that the companies in South Florida have created these opportunities for African American actors. It's a need. We have such talented actors in South Florida, period. And then the African American actors who are working in these particular companies. So what has happened then is that companies then start to create and do their own thing, like your Tyler Perry's, or like other companies, other writers are trying to write other plays. And so we get into other particular types of plays that actors have to get their feet wet in, you know, so you just have to do the best you can.
I've noticed, though, that when you mention colorblind casting, when you see it normally in South Florida in supporting roles, but it's very rare that you see in South Florida a lead role that is colorblind cast. New Theater did a Henry V a few years ago with a young woman of color playing Henry V. But that's so rare. Is there something we need to get across to artistic directors that that's an acceptable choice?
You know what I really love about South Florida theater companies is that they're very gutsy. And I think that we're getting to the point of being gutsy like Chicago, like New York. I think because theater now is, you know, you can do so many things with theater. I mean, you can take a play like Othello and you can have an all-female cast of Othello. And you know, maybe years ago that wasn't heard of to do something like that. I did a play some years ago called Jelly Belly, and a wonderful actress, she said, you know, I could play the lead in this, although it was for an African-American male. And she came in and just blew me away in the audition, and she did it, and to some great reviews too as well. But you know, to me, that's what theater is all about. It's about being gutsy. It's about, we don't want to see the same thing over and over again. How many times can you actually see Raisin in the Sun? You know, how many times do you want to see as good as it is The Wiz? So you want to do things that people have never heard of. Right. You want to be daring, you know, and that's what I love about the companies here in South Florida. You just want to be as daring as possible. And for an African-American company to be as daring as the other companies have been, that's what it's all about. And I think that's fused the heart of the actor, and especially the African-American actor, to say, okay, I'm not just going to do a church play. I'm going to do something else.
Right,
well,
right.
Okay, let's do a church play where everybody's just hanging off the ceiling. Then, okay, that's a little bit more daring. So then you start to say to yourself, you know, wow, this is great. You know. So you know, we want to really promote that more in our culture.
What did you do last season? Let's name some of the plays.
Well, and I'm glad you came out to see Simply Simone. Simply
Yes, I did.
Simone was fun.
Blew me away.
It's amazing.
But can I tell you something about Simply Simone? So the company Summer Wind Productions, who is out of Oregon, they didn't have the rights to do that play, although they promoted it on their website that this particular show was available. So I wrote to them and I asked them, you know, could we do it? No, they said no, because the estate of Nina Simone will not release the rights of it. They were going through some battles with the film and all of these other things. And so finally they released it, and I said, wow, let's try to do it. I wanted to try to do it before Joe Adler get his hand on it. And anybody else. I said, if David Orisco grabs this first, oh my goodness, you know. So I was so happy. I was so happy that we were able to do it in our little small black box, which basically we seat about maybe 140, 150 people. And Karen, you came out to see the show. I think you came out to see the show, and you know, we did something different with our house, you know. So we tried to create this review type of feel, you know, with it. And so that was a lot of fun, you know. And then we did a wonderful play called Zoo Man and the Sign, which Don, I know you know Don Seward, he starred in this particular play. John Pryor directed that show. And before that, we did another show called Hustle, written by Keith C. Wade, which was a phenomenal play for us to do because the whole set was a basketball court. So
and Keith is local.
Yeah, Keith is local. Keith is local. And so, I mean, those were fun shows to do. And we like doing shows that when African American audiences walk into there, they see this place looking like something, not just the theater. You know, it looks like something else. And I love when places look like another form of something. That's why I don't like when curtains are down. I like for you to walk in and the lights are really warm and you see that and then lights come up.
And artwork too. The theater, you focus that in the waiting area, in the lobby. You had beautiful artwork when I was there last.
I am so glad that you mentioned that. And I know our director is going to see that. He's going to say, yes. And that's, yeah, because we have a great gallery sitting right next
That's
to
right.
it. And,
Yes.
and we want to make sure that when folks walk in, almost like some of the other places, that they see some art, they see some things that tell the story of what we're getting ready to do on the stage, if we can pull it off. That's always fun to do.
Well, it's what you're saying. You're trying to break the boundaries of what's expected when you go to the theater by doing new work, by doing work that you haven't seen a dozen times already, by putting artwork in the lobby and making it a gallery as well.
Oh, go on.
I was going to say, so what does the future hold? What are you looking at, for the next few seasons?
We have a play that we're going to be doing in January called Venus, written by Susie Laurie Parks. Venus is it's a fictional story about Sarah Bartman. Sarah Bartman in the 19th century, she was an African-American woman who was brought over from slavery, and she was here, and because of the way she looks in her body parts, she was put in circuses. And she ended up dying very early age, and then what they did was they cut off some of her body parts, and they would put it in these museums to show around. So I think that's a story, but that story is told in a circus type feel way. That's going to be directed by Rachel Finley. That's in January. Then at the end of the year, we're doing The Mighty Gents, written by Richard Wesley. John Pryor's doing that. It's about an old gang who used to be a very, very powerful gang in Newark, New Jersey, but now they're old guys and they're trying to still be this gang. And that doesn't quite work, So that's some of the dramatic part of that. We have some other companies that come into our house too as well. Jonathan Spikes wrote a play called I Am Who I Am and I Am Not Who You Think I Am. And that particular play will be done in November. And it's about his life, basically, because he's homosexual, and he wants to talk a little bit about what he went through in that particular thing. And so that's going to be a lot of fun to see that propelled on stage.
I love the title.
How do you determine what plays will be most accessible for the community, or something that they might want to come out and partake of?
Sometimes I think I make a mistake because we did a play called Ann and Emmett, and I just said, in South Florida, this play has got to be a great play that people would want to see. So Ann and Emmett was a play about Anne Frank meeting Emmett Till. And so Emmett Till was the young man who was killed in Mississippi very brutally. And of course we know about Anne Frank, but they meet in this imaginary place. So I said, wow, okay, South Florida, Miami, it's a really, really strong Jewish community here, of course, African Americans with Emmett Till. And they meet in this place, and we thought it would just go over so well. And audience-wise, it didn't really go over as well as we would have liked it, but I love the play. And sometimes I just love a play, and I really love doing a play, and I really want to do this particular play because I want to say we did it, Because a lot of times if you don't get certain plays up under your belt as a company, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I want to be one of those African-American companies that did it regardless of what people may have thought. I don't like doing plays too much that didn't have African Americans in them, although I really want to do Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. I really want to do that with an all-black company.
Yes.
I really want to do that. And I could just
Wait a minute.
I know.
Audition is about to happen.
That is like my dream play to do with an all African American
It's a
company.
great
It's
idea.
a great play. It's just, but then again, I keep hearing August Wilson saying, you better make sure you do enough African American writers. You're an African American company. And that's what he talked about. That's what he made his speech about, is that make sure you're true to African American writers whose plays have never been produced. And so we keep going back to that to make sure of that and to try our best to make sure those writers whose voices have never been heard.
Do you have to get permission from the author to let's say Virginia Woolf, for example, to do it black? Do you have to get permission, or you just go ahead and do it?
I would think so. Now wait, the writer,
Well-
I'm sorry, he
well,
just
he
passed
just
away.
died.
He just
Yeah.
passed
Just passed
away,
away.
and he
Yeah.
used to be very.
But Albie's
He's-
always been
he is
famous
very
for
Albie
being
is
very particular about who
strict,
they,
yes.
for years
He
they've been trying to
probably
get
would.
a gay
Yeah.
version of Virginia Woolf with all men, and he would never
Yeah.
sign off on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But to your question, oh yes, and even with this particular play, Dramatis, I mean, they're very Susan Laurie Parks is very particular about how you cast that particular play. Because when you have a small budget, you can't always cast 13 actors. And sometimes you can't even find 13 actors that can play the roles.
Right.
So, of course, you have to double cast on that and double, roll those actors. But, we do the best we can at that. Of course, we do everything in the permission of Samuel French or Dramatists or theater communications.
Well, how do you advertise? I mean, how does the public know of you?
Thank God it's social media.
But you're dependent on that.
He is a beast.
I know,
was
I'm
gonna
terrible.
say.
Social
I'm
media
terrible.
beast. No, it's good. That's how you
Somebody's
get it
gonna
done.
slap me, man. I'm telling you, they're gonna knock me out.
But that's how you market your
Yes,
product
that's
now.
how you do it.
More than anything, or certainly more than print, that is how you get the word out there.
It
It's
is
the new norm.
It is, and print is still so important in our community. I mean, my
Yes.
mom is 75 years old. She still reads the paper a lot, and and she depends on reading it. And she says to me, "I didn't see y'all in the paper," So you want to make sure that
Yeah.
we do everything we can, within the budget of it, to get the word out. And radio stations have been just so kind to us to come on certain stations and to really, really promote it. And
That's
we're
good.
really happy about that. And this forum here is incredible for us. This is a great opportunity. Thank you so much.
It's our pleasure, believe us, our pleasure.
There are so many challenges with doing African American theater,
Yes.
from funding opportunities to attendance. There's it's very hard sometimes to get people in the community to come out to see plays.
It is.
And so, how do you tackle those challenges? To sustain the theater.
What we have noticed is the first weekend for us, we do a lot of freebies. You got to really paper the house. And we worked out things with certain grants where they'll say, okay, we'll give you a little bit of money, make sure that 50 people come for free. Okay, so, those are pulling items that you can do. But that first weekend with those first 4 shows, people are coming in. Then that second weekend, it just goes down the hill. It's for some reason, nobody wants to come out that second weekend. Third weekend, it starts picking up a little bit. And then that fourth weekend, everybody and their
Everybody's trying
mama
to get in.
is trying to get into the...
Because
And then you're trying to cart in more chairs, and you're saying, oh my goodness, I can't
word of
believe
mouth.
it.
Is it
Yeah.
advertising at that point? Is it reviews? You say the first week, the first week is mostly comps, would you say? Mostly complimentary tickets. And then the second week you said it's down, which is interesting. So, is it word of mouth that gets that fourth week packed?
It is. It's word of mouth. It's the propelling of also
Yeah.
reviews. Thank you so much, Mr. Hirschman, for reviewing our shows. Thank you so much, because people because people do read those reviews, whether they're good or bad, and they're still great. It's still press, and it's wonderful for us. And so it's a propelling of that, and
Yeah.
people are still. It's the momentum of it. Now people are saying, "Wow, I really want to see the show." But with Simply Simone, the funny thing about that, Nina Simone has a name.
Sure.
And so people were they're like, I'm curious, because a lot of people, they know maybe a few of her songs, they don't know all of her songs, and then they didn't really know her life, and then, certain things, and then the film came out, and then that had a lot of, things going on with that too as well. So that helped us also to propel that. But we try to look for angles. What kind of angles? Like with the Ann and Emmett thing, I thought it was a great angle, but it didn't really work out that well. But then there's other angles that you use. With Zoom In and the Sign, of course, there was an African-American little girl who was killed on her front porch. That happened right near us, right in Liberty City, where an African-American little girl, Shardavia Jenkins, was killed on her front porch. So those are the type of angles. We don't just want to use it because of that, but it is what it is.
Right.
And we want the community to see it through theater, through our art. Theater is a powerful, powerful tool for what the world is going through, and especially in our community. And so there's some incredible things happening of our history and what happens, and to bring that to the stage. That's what we love to
Tell
do.
everybody where you are actually.
Good point.
The exact address, which is
6161 Northwest 22nd Avenue.
22nd.
22nd
I mean, I've
Avenue,
been
which is
there, but I'm
also
trying-
Martin Luther King Boulevard. There's a Martin Luther King Boulevard in every city
I know.
in America. It really is. And so the African Heritage Cultural Arts Center has been there for 40 years. We do have a website, and that's ahcacmiami.org.
Again, say it again.
One more time.
Slowly.
Sure. cacmiami.org.
Okay.
And so we hope folks would go to the website. We hope folks would come to see us because we do not just theater there. I know we're talking a lot about theater, but we do jazz festivals there. We have art galleries. We have programming for the children, an after-school program, a summer arts conservatory every year. We have over 300 kids that come out to
Wow.
our
That's
program.
wonderful.
You know, and also the wonderful Terrell McCraney. He just started a new program at our last summer program for kids, and he took was it Medea? He took something and he did a classical play and he reshaped it and had the young ladies to write it. So that was phenomenal, and he'll be there next summer too as well.
It's wonderful that there is such a vibrant force down there that is speaking directly to people and bringing new audiences in to theater and going, hey, look, there's this whole art form that you've only heard about, but it's just in your neighborhood. You can just come in and see it. So we're almost out of time. Do you have any plans for immediately where you think things are going? I mean, do you see this growing? Do you see it staying the same?
Well, I want to tell you that the African Heritage Cultural Arts Center is up under the division of the Miami-Dade County Cultural Affairs. And so Miami-Dade County Cultural Affairs are working really hard to make sure that our particular center goes from great to greater.
All right.
And hopefully in a few years we're going to see a whole new facade, a whole new building and things like that. And so we want to get better. And you know, there's also some incredible other centers around us, like the Joseph Caleb Center. There's
Right.
a new center with the 7th Avenue Theater that's there too as well, which is the Sandrell Rivers Theater, which is the new home for the
The ML
Ensemble.
Ensemble.
And also
Right,
Fantasy
And
Theaters.
Fantasy Theater
They're there
Factory.
too as well. So there's really a lot going on in our community that we're really proud of, that we are hoping to stay attached to and to always stay attached to, and to make sure that arts is always profound in that community.
And on that wonderful note, that was subtle. We want to thank Teddy for being here. We really appreciate it. We want to thank all of you for watching this evening. If you have any questions about what's going on in theater around you, please look at floridatheateronstage.com. We thank Teddy again. We thank all of you for being here, and we will see you next week on Spotlight on the Arts. Thank you and good night.